And we are live. All right, in today's national weather forecast, we have a lot of exciting stories to talk about. The first big story, and I think the biggest story over the next 2 weeks, is the Arctic blast of cold air that's going to be building in starting really this weekend and then lasting as far out as we can even go into the forecast. And you can see some of these. Minus 50 below average temperatures working all the way from Montana through the Midwest and then filling out through the entire country over the next 2 weeks. Many locations will be 10 to 20 degrees below zero with this Arctic blast of cold air. And that, as big of a story as that is, that's not the only story we have going on. We have 2 to 3 feet of snow building into the Pacific Northwest. We have up to a foot of lake effect snow in the Midwest, and then up to a foot possible in the Northeast as well. And then if that wasn't enough exciting weather to talk about, we have the possibility of a low pressure system forming off the southeast here, moving through North Carolina and Virginia, and then right up the coast and becoming possibly a major nor'easter. That's the one we've been talking about all week long that has the possibility to bring some major snowfall totals to the Northeast, so we're really going to dive into that one as well. And then on top of all that, it looks actually like we have another system that'll come through and bring heavy snow to the Midwest and Northeast again. So lots to talk about. Excuse me. If you're watching this after the live stream, then you'll be able to click down into the time bar below to go directly to the region that you're most interested in. So we'll start out by going over that Arctic blast of cold air again, because I believe that's the big story here. So you can see this front right here. There's a big storm system moving through the Midwest right now. It's brought up to a foot of snow to some locations, and watch as this front just moves across the country, spreads out, and then that low actually moves up into Canada. But behind it, it leaves this opening, and the winds around that low just pull this cold air right down into the northern parts of the country and into the Midwest as well. You can see as we get into Sunday, this is where we're 30 to 40 degrees below average in places like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. And unfortunately, that's not going anywhere. Actually, it appears to be getting more widespread and even colder as we push out even farther into the forecast. Montana is going to be one of the areas we really dive into today, 50 degrees below average. And that's a part of the country that's already one of the coldest locations in the entire lower 48. So you can see as we get all the way into the 10th and the 11th and the 12th, still 30 to 40 degrees below average throughout the entire Midwest, and then starting to creep its way up into the Northeast as well, and even getting all the way down into Texas. So except for California, Nevada, and Arizona, looks like the entire rest of the country is going to be feeling these 30 to 40 degree below average temperatures. So that's why that's our big story for today, that Arctic blast of cold air that's starting to work its way in right now, and then is going to last as far out as the forecast goes, all the way into your Valentine's Day. Temperature anomalies are still going to be 30 to 40 degrees below average, which means minus 10 to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit in some locations. And in Montana especially, we're going to be piling on that cold air with some wind. So it's going to feel like it's minus 50 in some places. So lots to talk about when we dive into those locations. But again, this is the system that's driving it. It's this storm system that moved through the Midwest, brought some decent snow to Wisconsin and Michigan. Some locations getting up to 8 inches. That's actually going to continue throughout the day today, mixing with some lake effect snow that we're going to take a look at. But here's the big thing. It's that air. You can see which way the winds are blowing. There's our low. Think about the counterclockwise rotation around a low, which means on the left side, you have this northwesterly wind just pulling down that cold air from Canada. And you see that purple air start to build in. That's what's causing these extremely cold temperatures throughout the entire country for the next 2 weeks. And you see, it doesn't go anywhere. It just keeps rotating right above the Midwest and just keeps pushing down that cold air over and over and over and over again for as far out as the forecast even goes. So this is just a perfect little graphic that shows what's going on. You can see, like I said, California, Nevada, and Utah, the only real locations that are going to be mild or even slightly above average temperatures. The entire rest of the country, except maybe Florida as well, is going to be in those extremely below average temperatures. You can see where it's the worst, right around Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Missouri. All these locations around here are those spots where we're going to be seeing 40 to 50 degree below average temperatures, and this is combining the entire extended outlook. For the next 2 weeks, that's what it's going to look like temperature-wise throughout the country. Very cold couple of 2 weeks. That's the takeaway if you haven't heard anything else I've said. If we want to look at what some of these temperatures will actually be, let's zoom in a little to the northern parts of the country here. Actually, I want to be able to see Montana because there's a lot of action going on in Montana. That's that low pressure system that's causing all this. You can see the winds still getting pulled in by that low pressure system, and that's what's drawing this cold air in. So watch as we click through the day today. Some of that cold air has already started to push in. We're below zero throughout parts of North Dakota, Wisconsin, and even Wisconsin as well. And then as we keep going through, you'll notice it pulse. That's just the difference between night and day. Cold temperatures come down at night, pull back a little during the day. But overall, you're going to see this cold air continue to push farther and farther down as we get minus 20 in St. Paul, minus 10 in Green Bay Sunday morning. So it's already starting over the next couple days, and then it's going to be sticking around for the next couple of weeks. As we continue to push through, it's that purple air. That's minus 30 in Great Falls. You mix that with some extreme wind gusts, and it feels like minus 50. That's why we have some winter weather warnings throughout Montana, throughout the Midwest. It's this cold air combined with wind, combined with snow, and you can see it just continues to push farther and farther down. This is now getting into Saturday the 13th, and you can see that cold air has filled in through basically the entire country, except California, Nevada, and Arizona. So right there, that's where we're going to be below zero temperatures throughout Montana, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. Very cold temperatures. That's going to be a big story that we're going to be talking about for the next 2 weeks. Now, the other big stories that we're talking about both for the next couple days and then in the extended forecast is what's going on with our precipitation. There's that one system, the one that's drawing down all that cold air, that's going to continue to drop some snow over the Midwest throughout the day today. The majority of the snow falling throughout the day today, though, is going to be due to those winds that are going right over the Great Lakes. So in our downwind locations from the Great Lakes, that's where our snowfall accumulations are going to be the best. In Michigan and New York, we could see 8 to 12 inches of snow in some locations. You'll notice we also have this strip of rain that's going to be moving across the southeast, and then we also have this system in the Pacific Northwest that is a very exciting one to look at because some of our locations could get 2 to 3 feet of snow with that one. And then that is actually the system that is going to continue to push down through the plains and into the southeast and possibly become this nor'easter that we're looking at towards the start of next week. And even on Sunday, we'll start to possibly feel the effects of this as well. So we've been talking about the possibility of this low forming all week long, but now we're actually getting closer to when it might actually happen. So as you get closer to the event itself, the forecast models get a lot more confident. Early models, I was hesitant to say this was going to happen because 5 days out in the forecast, really this whole thing might not have formed, but this has the potential to form Saturday night into Sunday morning. That's not that far away. So I would say guaranteed this thing is forming at this point. The question still is, will it move right up the coast and drop some great snowfall totals from North Carolina all the way up to Maine? Or will it shoot off into the Atlantic, and everybody just misses out on some good winter precipitation. That, while the Arctic blast of cold air is the story with the most major impacts right now, I would say this is the most exciting part of the story because it's still questionable what's going to happen. So we're going to have to watch that one closely over the next few days. As of right now, though, you can see, looks like some heavy snowfall is going to be expected across the East Coast with that one. So if we look at the overall precipitation, avoid the northern parts. I'll show you the snowfall totals in a second. More just look at the southeast here to see what kind of rain we can be expecting down there. You can see Florida, parts of Georgia, getting 1 inch to maybe 2 inches of rain, and then especially as that low builds in on Sunday, that's where we could get over 2 inches of rain, especially down there in Florida where the low itself is forming. Now when it comes to our snowfall accumulations, keep your eye on the Pacific Northwest, the Midwest, and the Northeast, and then as I continue to click through, keep your eye on North Carolina, Virginia as that low starts to shoot up the coast. So as we start to click through here, you see lots of lake effect snow and the last little bits of that system that just moved through over the last 24 hours. Northwest starting to pick it up. As we continue to move throughout the day Friday, looking into Friday afternoon, that's where that system has moved into Idaho, Montana. We're going to be picking up over 2 feet of snow in locations there, and then mixing it with some very cold temperatures. So as we click through, you can see New York getting some nice lake effect snow. Michigan, the best lake effect snow, especially the upper peninsula, possibly getting up to 1 foot. Then you see the Cascades there in Washington. That's where we have 2 to 3 feet building in there, possibly 2 to 3 feet in Idaho as well. And then that system that's hitting the Pacific Northwest over the next couple of days, you can see by Monday, that's going to strip through and then move into the Midwest, hitting Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then move up into the Northeast. So it's a pretty cool little dip it makes right there. Let's just go back and watch just that little system as it moves through Montana and then goes through the Midwest and then goes through the Northeast, dropping a ton of snow on the Northeast. That's getting into next Thursday though, so possibility of that happening is still a little up in the air. Now let's really focus in on that low pressure system that could become our nor'easter. That looks like it could drop its first bits of snow Saturday night into early Sunday morning, then work its way up the coast. And as of right now, it looks like the majority of the snowfall accumulations are just missing us. It looks like it's just off the coast of Maine, parts of Massachusetts in that bullseye, but the big strip of snow, you see it makes a straight line from North Carolina straight into the Atlantic, just off the coast. So the model trends have been moving this low closer and closer to the coast for the last couple of days. So if that trend continues, then maybe that low moves right along the coast and we get that heavy snowfall right over New York, which I know everybody in the Northeast loves to have those good winter storms. Well, I guess not everybody, but people who love weather typically like it when exciting weather happens. So this is showing the warning map. This is always a good thing to keep in mind. You can see nothing going on in California. That's going to be the case for as far as I can see in the forecast. Not much going on in California as that big ridge is over us for quite possibly the next 2 weeks. Where we do have some exciting weather is in Montana. I shouldn't say exciting because when you have these winter storm warnings, that's where situations and weather can actually get serious, start damaging some property, can start having some effects towards people's safety. So we have that going on in Idaho, Montana, and Michigan there as well. The spots in Montana, that's a combination of the heavy snowfall building in, the extremely cold air building in, and wind chills making it feel like it's minus 50 degrees. Now in the Midwest, that winter storm warning is because of the lake effect snow that is left over and is due to the northwesterly winds that are going right over the lakes, which aren't actually completely frozen yet. So when that happens, the moisture from the lakes goes into the cold air and drops some snow right on the downwind side of the lake. It's a perfect little graphic that shows how that works. And then you can see the same story is going on downwind in New York. So downwind to the lakes in New York. And you can see it's not the same direction of wind hitting here, because then we'd be getting it in Pennsylvania as well. This wind is more pulling up like that, and I'll show a good graphic for that later in the video. Something I always like doing is looking at the winter storm severity index. It's good to look at this because it seems like it's easy just to call every snowstorm a major snowstorm. So this is a good way to always balance things out and get some good perspective on if a storm actually is major. That one that's building through Idaho and Montana, it appears that that one does have major locations where major impacts will be felt. That's where you could start to see extensive property damage. It starts posing some safety concerns. So that is a major storm building into Idaho and Montana over the next couple days. Then Nebraska into Missouri, that's more of a moderate snowstorm. It's not as cold as Montana. You're not getting as much snow. So that's just basically like your average winter storm. Now as we pull into the Midwest here, for the most part, moderate as well. It's just that lake effect. It's not an actual storm system moving over you guys. It's just lake effect snow dropping some decent accumulations. I'll give it that, but it's nothing too intense right there. Where we could actually have some extreme impacts is right down here in New York, where we get that purple color. That's where extreme impacts could be expected, but as you can see, it's not a very widespread region. And then I believe these minor impacts are starting to take into account that low pressure system that could be moving in on Sunday. But we're going to have to see what happens there and if it ends up following closer to the coast, because that's when that heavy snowfall that for right now is hitting the Atlantic would instead be right over the eastern states. So, as you can see, the most major storm going on throughout the country is the one in the Pacific Northwest. Obviously, the Arctic blast is a big story as well, and we'll talk about that throughout this video. But I think it'd be good to start in the Pacific Northwest because that's where we do have a major storm going on right now. And you can see that low pressure system sitting just above Washington. That's going to be moving throughout the day today. And good news is that one is a pretty fast mover. It's already into Nebraska by the time we get into later tonight. But there's another little system behind it. That, right when we start to ease up on snow in Washington and Idaho, that new system is going to push through, bring even heavier snow amounts to Washington, Idaho, and Montana. So some heavy rates building into Montana throughout the weekend. That's where we're going to have the greatest snowfall totals, where we're able to accumulate for long or large amounts of time. It's already building in right now. You can see by the time we're building or working into the start of next week, Washington, Idaho, Montana still picking up some of that snow. So let's actually dive in and take a closer look just at the overall region, and then I want to take an even closer look at Montana and Idaho themselves. So wide view, see the Cascades getting heavy snowfall, Idaho, Montana. This is this morning, and we're already starting to pick it up. Rain along the coast where your temperatures are moderated by the warmer ocean right there. And then that system moves off. That one continues to drop light snow over Montana, but for the most part it's gone. And then this new one starts to build in Saturday morning. As that builds in, looks like we get even heavier snowfall rates, and those again fall to the same places, higher elevations in Idaho, and then western and central Montana. Continue to accumulate in Idaho and Montana all the way into Monday, and then finally looks like we're in the clear on Tuesday. So let's take a look at these snowfall totals that we're going to get. This is with the first system. Getting 6 to 8 inches, maybe over a foot in the Cascades. Select Bullseye in Idaho getting over a foot. Montana, for the most part, 4 to 6 inches. And then that first system moves through. It's the second one that really starts to drop some snow. So this is working in what you're going to pick up by Tuesday. Up to 2 feet in the Cascades. Widespread 6 to 8 to possibly a foot of snow throughout central Washington. And then looking at Idaho, 2 feet of snow, that bullseye right there. And then throughout the entire state, you're getting at least 5 inches almost. The southern parts look like they're missing out, as well as the entirety of California. Then in Montana, over a foot to possibly 2 feet of snow in some locations. Let's take a more local look at just Idaho and Montana to get the exact timing. So you can see 11 a.m. building in snow to Idaho and Montana. As we click through, it eases up some light snow throughout the day today, and then that next system pushes in, getting full blast by about 5 p.m. on Saturday. You can actually see the low right there as that snow is being pulled in behind it because that low is pulling down cold air. That snow continues to drop all the way through Sunday and even into Monday afternoon. By Monday night, it looks like we're finally in the clear. So let's take a look at the local totals right there. Let's just click all the way through. Butte, where my family is originally from, getting 9 inches of snow with that one. Missoula, 15 inches. And then look at those spots in Idaho. That's where we're getting maybe 2 to 3 feet of snow. Basically all of western Montana, over 8 inches. And select locations seeing a foot to possibly 2 feet. And then when you get into the real high elevations along the Rockies, that's where you could be getting 2 to 3 feet of snow. Now, the other big part of that story, when we're looking at that snowfall, that's not the only thing happening. The other thing happening is this cold air that's being pulled down. You can also see the little pulses of what's driving all that snowfall we were just looking at. It's not separate little troughs moving through. It's more pulses in this overall giant trough, which is actually a little bit weird weather-wise. Typically when you have a trough like this, you just get rain and snow along the right edge, right around here. But I believe the reason we're getting all this snowfall up into Washington, Idaho, and Montana is we're able to pull in some moisture from the Pacific, and then we're mixing it with such cold air that the air can't hold all that moisture. It just turns into precipitation and falls in the form of snow. So you'll see that next little pulse coming through, and then you'll also start to see this cold Arctic air start to build in. That's that purple color that's building into the northwest there. And it doesn't just move through and then it's warm again. It actually seems to continue to rotate around and just sit over the region, even dropping some extra little blasts of cold air right over Montana for the next couple of weeks. So snowfall is a factor, cold temperatures are a factor, and even winds are a factor. So let's take a look at that cold air as it blasts through. There's that low moving off, and then you can see this entire trough is what's going to just be pulling in this cold air. Getting into Sunday, that's where Montana is starting to see temperatures 30 to 40 degrees below average. I think as we continue to click through, this is getting into Tuesday. You can even get some 50 degrees below average temperatures. And Elk Park in Montana, I know this fact because this is the exact location where my family's from. Elk Park holds the record for the coldest place in the lower 48. If you disagree with that, let me know in the comments because maybe my sources are a little biased on that one. But it's already the coldest place in the lower 48. And it looks like we're going to be 50 degrees below average throughout the relative region there. So I'm going to be interested to follow those temperatures to see actually how cold it ends up being in Montana over the next week to even 2 weeks. Because as I click through here, you can see that cold air is not going anywhere. This is now getting into the 13th, into the 14th. I certainly wouldn't have plans to spend Valentine's Day outside. Looks like we're still going to be 30 to 50 degrees below average throughout all of Montana there. So if we want to actually take a look at the temperatures themselves, you can see right now 30 degrees in Helena, 32 degrees in Missoula. That's not bad for this time of year, right? But as we click through, that purple color starts to move in, which signifies below zero temperatures. You see Great Falls minus 11, and then that purple air just continues to spread farther and farther. You see it push in and pull back, push in and pull back. That's the difference between night and day. But overall, the extent to how far it's able to creep seems to keep pushing farther and farther south. So as we go through here, this is where we're already working minus 10, minus 20 degrees below zero. So we're no longer dealing with how far off of the average are you? That's just straight up temperatures in Fahrenheit, minus 25 in Great Falls. And I know Montana people are tough, so this might not even be anything to you guys, but as we get into the 13th and 14th, it looks like it could get real cold, maybe minus 20 degrees, and then on top of that, we're mixing it with some extreme wind gusts. Getting 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts. Butte right there, Bozeman, 35 mile per hour wind gusts. So you're mixing all that snow with that cold air with some wind gusts. So that's just the recipe for some extreme winter weather. And when you get the winds and the cold air, that's where you get wind chill. And even though it might be minus 20 degrees, it feels like it's minus 50 degrees. So that's why we have those winter storm warnings in Montana throughout the time right now and moving forward into this weekend. I have a feeling we're going to have even more of those over the next 2 weeks as that cold air continues to stay over that region. So just one last look, give a good snapshot of what's going on. We have what you could call a major winter weather in Idaho and Montana over the next few days. You see Idaho, even some extreme impacts. Montana as well, widespread winter impacts with that system. So you can see that system is the same one that's going to be moving through Nebraska and Kansas City and then eventually into the Midwest. It doesn't show it on this map yet, but eventually Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio are going to get some snowfall with that as it pushes through. But that's a ways off in the forecast, so they're not showing it yet. What we will feel in the Midwest are these moderate impacts to minor impacts downwind of the lakes. You can see just downwind of Lake Superior, we could get some major impacts there, but that's because the overall flow is going right over the lakes. It's straight from the northwest. A lot of these lakes aren't completely frozen yet, so the moisture from the lakes is able to get into that cold air, and then it turns it into snow, drops it right over the regions downwind of the lakes. So that's some of the exciting weather that we're going to have in the Midwest over the next 24 hours. You can take a look at that system as it really moves up and out of the Midwest. We picked up 8 inches of snow throughout Wisconsin, Michigan, over 8 inches in some places, but think about the circulation around the low, because that's what's driving this lake effect snow that we're going to be getting over the next 2 days. Counterclockwise circulation, so right here, that's where your winds are going straight from the north or from the northwest, basically going right over your lakes, which is why the downwind locations are picking up that snow. Now, as we move into the forecast, you can see there's a couple little systems. The ones that are moving through the northwest are also going to move through the Midwest as well. So we're going to have to keep our eye on those as for the next week or two, because it looks like there's a number of multiple snowstorms that are just going to keep pushing through the Midwest over the next week. The big story, though, is what's going on with the temperatures, because there are 40 to 50 degree below average temperatures moving especially through the Midwest over the next 2 weeks. And it's starting with that snowstorm that you guys just felt. The snowstorm moves off into Canada and the cold air gets pulled in behind it. You can see that purple air right there. That's straight out of the Arctic. That's where we get 40 to 50 degrees below average, which means maybe minus 10, minus 15 degrees below zero actual temperatures. And the thing is, it's not just going to move off. It's not one of those systems that moves through in a day and then it's gone. It looks like this blob of cold Arctic air, this low pressure system, is just going to be oscillating and rotating over the region for the next 2 weeks. So that's what's going to be driving all that cold air that we're going to be feeling. If we want to see it in an even better way, there you can see the front. Keep your eye on that as it moves across the country. That's the storm that brought us some decent snow in Wisconsin and Michigan. The thing to watch, though, you can see the cold air is already starting to get pulled in behind the system. So think of that system. It's moving up into Canada, and as it moves up, it's pulling this air in behind it. So watch that cold air just continue to get pulled in. That's now working into Saturday and Sunday. So it's starting to pull in right now because the system has already moved through. Then as we work into Saturday and Sunday, that's when the really cold air starts pulling in, 30 to 40 degrees below average. And then I'm just going to click through here fast. Watch how long it sticks around. This is now into Wednesday. We're now 30 to 40 degrees below average in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. And then we click through again, now getting into all the way into February 12th. We're still 30 to 35 degrees below average. February 12th, again, almost 50 degrees below average. So it's not going anywhere. You can see it actually spreads out and appears to get even colder. I'm going to have to keep my eye on the records to see if we're breaking any records with this cold air that we're bringing down over the next 2 weeks. If you want to see it a better way, this is just an average of what's going to be happening over the next 2 weeks. You can see the West is basically the only part of the map that isn't feeling this cold air. Throughout the Midwest, we are going to be 30 to 50 degrees below average for as far out as the forecast goes. Now, if we want to look at what those temperatures actually will be, we can zoom in here and take a look at them. But one thing to think about, this is actually a great little graphic to show what I've been talking about. There's the low, and you can see how these winds are being pulled into that low. That is what's advancing this purple blob of cold Arctic air. And you're going to see it just start to, it's almost like it's charging like an army. This cold air just continues to build in. And now we're looking at actual temperatures, not below average, which is kind of hard if you don't know what your average temperatures are. You can see by Saturday, that's where that really cold air has started to build into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, minus 10 degrees. And unfortunately, that's not the coldest it's going to get. As we work into Sunday, we're now getting into minus 20 in St. Paul, minus 10 in Green Bay, as that purple freezing air continues to spread throughout the region. And then, unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. It seems to be the overall pattern over the next 2 weeks. There's little pulses where you get a little pullback, but then it's really just because that big low up here that's causing this is almost pulling in and then extending out. It's almost just oscillating over this region, bringing in that extremely cold air. As we go through all the way into the 12th and 14th, I think was when, it's the 11th for you guys. 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th, that's when you get another really freezing blast of cold air throughout the entire Midwest. That's where you're maybe dealing with 15 to 20 degrees below zero temperatures. Now, I want to go back to what we're looking at right now, because this is the low pressure system causing all of that. But you can see there's actually something else that it's causing. Based on the winds going around this low as we continue to move through, you can see the direction of these winds are going right over the Great Lakes. So it's downwind of where you see these wind streams. That's where the atmosphere above is picking up moisture from the lakes, and then you can see the temperatures are cold, around 0 degrees up to 15 degrees below zero. That's below freezing, which is the important part. So you're mixing that moisture from the lakes, which aren't frozen yet, with that cold air, and that's why we have major in some locations, but we have some decent lake effect snow building into Michigan right downwind of those lakes. I might have just spent too much time on this graphic, but it's just because it perfectly illustrates what I'm talking about. Lakes right here, I'm going to say it again just to reiterate, and just because this graphic is so great. Lakes are unfrozen. So as the winds push over right here, it picks up some of the moisture from the lakes, which is just escaping into the atmosphere. Then your temperatures themselves are below freezing, so that moisture as it moves over land turns into precipitation, and then because you're below freezing, it drops it as snow. So that's why we get downwind lake effect snow, especially when you have the winds pushing right over the lakes like that. Okay, I'll finally move on from that graphic and actually show you guys the precipitation that you'll get. You can see that was early this morning as the system itself was moving through. What we're going to be getting over the next 2 days, you see it's not heavy snowfall accumulations, it's just that light lake effect snow. But we're going to be picking it up for quite some time, so your accumulations are actually going to be pretty good there. Then you can see another little system that's going to be building into the Midwest, dropping some snow over Illinois as we get into Saturday night and Sunday morning. That's going to move through into Indiana. Looks like Wisconsin's actually going to miss out on that one for the most part. Slightly gets the southern end. Michigan will get that snow as well. Then another system. That's the story for the Midwest. Number of systems continually pushing through over the next week. So we're going to have to really watch this region closely because there's a lot going on. We got snowfall, we got freezing air, we got wind, all kinds of exciting winter weather going on. So just clicking through, you can see that's mostly the lake effect snow, 6 to 8 inches in the upper peninsula of Michigan. Or mainland Michigan, I'm not exactly sure if that's what you call it. Comment below if that's not what it's called. 4 to 6 inches, especially right where you're downwind of the lakes. Then that next system that pushes through, let's see who that gets. Yeah, it goes right through Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. Looks like Ohio could actually be picking up over 6 to 8 inches with that one as well. And then continuing to pile on in Michigan. So lots going on when it comes to the precipitation. Let's take a more local look right downwind of the lakes, just because that's been the theme of the Midwest forecast today. You can see as we get into tonight, that's where this lake effect really starts to turn on. That's where the winds are getting a little bit stronger. Temperatures are getting a little bit colder. So that's where the lake effect gets a little more significant. And it's just going to hang out throughout the day today and a little bit into tomorrow. But as that right there is the new system coming in. I clicked ahead. That's why I got a little off track right there for a second. That's that next system coming in 12 a.m. on Sunday, but you can see it's already gone by 6 a.m. on Sunday. So that's going to be a quick mover. The real weather that you're getting snowfall-wise is with that lake effect. And let's just click through again, see how much we could be getting. Looks like 4 to 5 inches. Northern parts of Michigan is where you're in that 6-inch range. And then if you show I can show the upper peninsula here. Let's just take a look at it. You can see, might take a little while because I have about 50 tabs open. This is a good thing to show because this is where there are some significant accumulations, 5 to 8 inches. And if we actually look at what kind of impacts are expected, because that's a good way to look at it, you can see from Michigan, this is just a moderate storm. It's average. You're getting moderate impacts downwind of the lakes, and then where you do maybe have some major impacts is right where I was just showing on this snowfall map, where we're maybe 6 to 8 inches there. That's where you could start to see some major impacts with all that lake effect snow. Now it's also interesting to move over in the theme of lake effect snow. That seems to be the theme for the last 20 minutes or so, it seems. We also are feeling that in New York throughout the day today for the same reason. It's that low pressure system which is causing those winds to go right over Lakes Erie and Lake Ontario, and that is actually causing some extreme impacts throughout parts of western New York. What the extreme impacts, though, I'll preface, that is for very select locations. I love this graphic because you can really zoom in here and it gives you a good idea of what's going on. Very select locations have those extreme impacts. Widespread is more minor to moderate with that lake effect snow because it's going to be pretty light. It doesn't seem like it's anything too intense right there. Now we do have the possibility of some intense winter weather pushing into the northeast though. So I think that would be a good thing to start our northeast forecast on right now. And this is really going to be a combined southeast to mid-Atlantic to northeast forecast because this system that I'll be showing here looks like it's going to be forming off Florida and then moving up the coast to possibly become a major nor'easter. I think this right here, the Arctic blast of cold air creating 40 to 50 degree below average temperatures, the lake effect snow piling up over the next couple of days, those are interesting and they're happening, so it's worth noting. But I think the most exciting part of the forecast is this low pressure system that could be forming over the next couple of days. So it actually starts up here in Idaho and Montana. That's why I like doing national forecasts like this. All our weather is connected. What happens to the west ends up affecting what happens to the east. So this system actually starts in Montana. You're going to see it start to drop down here and then reorganize. It pulls in some moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. It pulls down some cold air from the Arctic. That's that big Arctic blast of cold air we've been talking about throughout this entire live stream. And then here's what we've been watching all week long. And I've been very hesitant to say this is going to happen because when you're more than 3 days off in the forecast, I really don't trust what it's saying yet. But now you can see it's Saturday night into Sunday morning. This system looks like it's going to be organizing, and that's not that far off in the forecast. So it's starting to look like the models are starting to agree that this is something that's going to happen. Right there, that's where this low officially forms. And then previous models, especially 3 days ago, had this low going straight off into the Atlantic. Nobody got any rain or snow with it. The most recent model, and it seems to be the trend, every time I check this each day, the low keeps getting closer and closer and closer to the coast. So you can see it forms Saturday night, Sunday morning, and then as of right now, the models have that low pushing up the coast, which means we're going to get some rain and snow all the way down from, it looks like Georgia could even get some snow with this one, all the way up into Maine. And then the real question to ask, because as of right now, it looks like it's very isolated parts of the coast that are picking up that snow. The real question to follow, and the thing I'm going to be watching, and would agree with the trends, is if this low ends up moving right along the coast. Because the closer it moves, the farther inland the impacts will be. Right now, New York's not getting too much action with this one, but the way the models have been going, that low might end up going right off the coast to where we get some possible major impacts throughout the entire Northeast. So that's an exciting part of the story. This is another good way to see it because it does kind of come out of nowhere. But like I said, it actually starts up here in Montana. Keep your eye on this little blob right here as it starts to strengthen and deepen. You can see it starts to dip down, pulls down that cold air. Right here, it's pulling in that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. That's what's allowing the storm to strengthen, really organize itself, to then hit South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and then move up the coast. So it's pretty cool to be able to watch the system on that map right there. As you can see, it starts, dips down, grabs some energy, and then moves right up the coast. The question is, how close to the coast will it be? So I also want to look, that's that strip of rainfall that's moving through the southeast throughout the day today. Normally I wouldn't even show that because it's just some light rain, just your average rain. This is where the system starts to organize itself. You can see it actually starts Saturday afternoon, starting to pull that moisture in. Right there, you can see it starting to strengthen. And then I think right about here is when you can actually see the low itself has formed right off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. And then that is going to drop some pretty significant rainfall throughout Georgia and Florida, maybe even some heavy snowfall rates throughout Georgia and South Carolina as well. And then that is going to move up the coast. Before we move up the coast, let's just see some of those precipitation totals we could be getting. 2.5 inches in Florida. Throughout Georgia, you're 1/2 inch up to 1 inch of rain. South Carolina, you're 1/2 inch to 1 inch of rain as well. And you can see the strip of heavy precipitation. That's going to be a theme of this forecast. It seems like this storm is dropping its heaviest precipitation in a clearly defined strip. So now, let's follow this system as it continues to move up the coast. Let's get our eye on it. Looks like that's the first little traces of the system right there. And then we start to build some snow into, it looks like Tennessee and North Carolina, getting 0.2 to 0.4 inches per hour of snow. And then as we work into early Sunday morning, maybe even late Saturday night, timing is still a little shaky in the models and exact locations, but it looks like as we get into Saturday night and early Sunday morning, as that low starts to move up the coast, you're going to see it creep into view here in a second. That might even be it right there. Looks like Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, all getting some snow with this system. There's the low itself right there. As it moves off the coast of Virginia, that's where we get some heavier snowfall rates building all the way from North Carolina, some heaviest snowfall rates in Virginia, reaching all the way up into New York. The real question here, this is what I keep emphasizing, is how close this system will be to the coast. Because that's going to determine whether we get these heavy snowfall rates right there, or if we get them all the way up into western New York, and for how long it takes to move up the coast. If it just moves up in 24 hours, your totals aren't going to be that significant. If it decides to take a slower path, that's where you could pile up 1 foot to 2 feet of snow. So you can see New Jersey all the way up into Massachusetts as this low works its way up the coast, picking up that snow as well. Let's just back it up and take another quick view because it's a pretty cool graphic to look at. Low moves in, right up the coast, drops some rain and snow, and it's gone. So let's actually see where we could be getting some snowfall totals. You can see West Virginia still picking up about 1 inch of snow throughout the day today, but what we're interested in is that system right there. That's that low as it moves through. Like I said, it's a strip of heavy snowfall. You have that strip where you could get 6 to 8 inches, but then it's also has widespread areas that are more in that 1 to 3 inch range. And you can see it's going all the way from Georgia all the way up through the northeast. But as of right now, you can see that strip of heaviest snowfall rates looks like it's just missing the northeast. So what we want to see, if you're a snow lover in the northeast, we want to see it take a closer path to the coast and get some of those heavier totals right over New York. But you can see Tennessee getting some snow as well. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia especially. That could be a good place to zero in because that's where we have the heaviest snowfall building in through this part of the U.S. See, not much, and then we get the first little traces building in 7 p.m. on Saturday. That's where Greenville might be getting some heavy snowfall rates, and then those heavy snowfall rates build into northern parts of North Carolina and Virginia as we get into 1 a.m. on Sunday. As we get into 7 a.m. on Sunday, that's where the heavier snowfall has already started to build a bit farther north. As of right now, it looks like the system's going to be moving pretty fast, but we have the trailing effects of some light snow stretching all the way from Tennessee through Virginia. And then it looks like 1 p.m. Sunday, this system is already gone. So let's check out the totals that we'll actually be getting with that. You can see 4 to 6, maybe 8 inches in some places, and it looks like Virginia is getting the most widespread areas of that great snowfall right there. So let's continue to follow it, but let's just back up for a second so we can take a wide view again of this system. Remember, this is the one we're following, the one that starts in Montana, drops down, picks up moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, pulls down cold air, moves up the coast right there, and then as of right now, it looks like it's just brushing the northeast. What we want to see is this low to take a closer path and just follow the northeast. That's where we could pick up some good snowfall. Now, seeing it another way, it's this little blob right here. Take a look at that as it dips down, becomes its own little system, picks up that moisture, strengthens, gains some energy, and then moves up the coast. And you can see it jumps off right there a little bit into the Atlantic. If it decides to follow the coast right here, that's where we could get some major impacts and a major nor'easter. I always like looking at this graphic as well because it perfectly shows what's going on with this system. So there's the low. Let's see, as we click through here, there's the low right over there. It's moving slowly. Let's see it start to form. Oh, I think we missed it. Okay, getting back here. Maybe this model doesn't actually have it. Stay with me. This is a live stream. This is what happens. It should be building in off the coast. Oh, no. Right there. Off the coast. Right where it should have been. Georgia and South Carolina. That low pops up right there. I missed it because the temperatures around this region are so warm that it was hard to imagine a big storm system right there. So that's the low that's building in up the coast. You can see it pushing in over North Carolina. What we want to see is if it ends up hugging the coast and closer to Massachusetts. That's where you want to be if you like snowfall, is right on this dividing line right there. What that means right there is where you're pushing in moisture, but also pulling down cold air. So if that low decides to be right on the coast, that's where you're pushing in moisture from the ocean and then pulling down cold air from land, and that's where you get your heaviest snowfall totals. So as of right now, it looks like the low is still a bit off the coast by the time it's off the coast of Massachusetts and Maine. But the recent models, every model I look at has that low moving closer and closer. So we're going to have to stay updated with this one as it continues to develop. Now, the other part of this story that is driving weather in the Northeast throughout the next 24 hours is the low that already moved through and now has the trailing winds behind it. If you want to see the low, it's up here in Canada now. That's the one that brought some decent snowfall to the Midwest, and some locations in New York got some snow with that one as well. Now, it's just the winds that are still being pulled into that low. Think of it up here in Canada. We're still pulling these winds, and what that's doing is causing some lake effect snow. So right over the Great Lakes, and especially downwind, where you have these winds pushing over the lakes, it picks up moisture, mix it with these below freezing temperatures, drop some lake effect snow. And it's interesting to see the direction of these winds. You can see right there, it's almost southwesterly. So that's where our greatest downwind accumulations should be. Right here, it's more westerly, so that's where our greatest accumulations should be. Now let's actually take a look and see if that's where we are going to be getting our lake effect snow. It looks like that's exactly where we'll be getting it. Just northeast and just east of our Great Lakes right there. And then that is that next system that we have to watch as it moves through. Looks like it will be spreading snow to parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Let's back it up and click through again. Yeah, it looks like it's just light snow. The heaviest accumulations have the potential to hit Massachusetts here, but right now it looks like just getting a dusting with that low as it moves through. So let's take a look at that lake effect as it moves throughout the day today. That's where we have those heavy accumulations right where the winds were pushing. It's a perfect illustration of how that works. Just northeast of where those southwesterly winds were blowing over the lakes, we get 2 to 4 inches. Then just east of where those westerly winds were blowing over the Great Lakes, we get 2 to 5 inches. And then let's take a look at that system as it pushes through right there. Keep an eye on the strip of heaviest snowfall. It's just off the coast. So if you're a snow lover in the Northeast, we want to see this low move a bit closer here, and then that heavy snowfall, instead of being wasted over the Atlantic, could bring some exciting winter weather to your populated regions. But again, weather is always serious. I'm personally passionate about weather, so I get excited when there's some interesting weather going on. But at the end of the day, you do also have to remember that weather does have some serious consequences. And you can actually see, with that lake effect snow, there are some areas where we could be seeing some extreme to major impacts throughout the day today. So I know I always try to put a positive spin on the storm stories, but there are things to consider that are serious. So as we look at a more local look at that lake effect snow, that's what's going to be building in. You see Watertown getting some of it, and then it's just light. That's the theme of the lake effect snow. It's light, and it's building in over a decent amount of time, so that's why our accumulations are actually going to be pretty good with that. We're getting up to 2 to 5, maybe even 6 inches in some places. And then what we're really going to have to watch is that next system as it moves through. As of right now, actually, I'll show that one too. I forgot about that one. As of right now, this is what that low is showing. Just 1 to 2 inches, maybe 3 inches in New York City, because we're being missed by the bulk of the heaviest snowfall right there. Now, that's the big part of the story so far. Now, let's get super speculative and really back up and see way into the forecast just for fun. I always like to focus on what's happening right now because that's where the models are confident and it's more informational. When you look more than 3 days into the forecast, that's where it's more entertaining. But, I got some time, let's go for it. The next big system that could be pushing through would be Tuesday and Wednesday. It looks like there might be a major low moving into the northeast. That is certainly something that we're going to have to watch. You see the bulk of it hitting Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. That's why I haven't focused on it. I never like focusing too much on a possible major snowstorm when it's more than 4 days out, because who knows what the weather forecast models are going to be saying tomorrow. But as of right now, looking at Wednesday the 10th, looks like there could be a major storm building in through the northeast. That would be 0.2 to 0.5 inches per hour spreading through New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and then Maine, and possibly becoming its own major nor'easter. So if you miss out on that one that's building in over the next couple days, there's another one in the forecast that you still might be able to look forward to. Let's check out the totals with that one as we take that into account. That is where you could get a foot and a half, maybe even 2 feet in some places. Widespread snowfall for all of New York, maybe getting 6 to 10 inches total by the 11th. But again, that's a ways off in the forecast. To stay updated with that one, you can subscribe to Holt Hanley Weather, where I do these forecasts every single day, or at least on the work days. So let's do a summary of everything we talked about, because we talked about a lot today. One, let's actually go back here. One is the Arctic blast of cold air that's filling in and staying over the entire country, basically, for the next 2 weeks. That's where we're 30 to 40 to 50 degrees below average. Parts of Montana could feel 50 below zero when you factor in this cold air with some wind chill. But you can see that's an Arctic blast of cold air that's pushing in through Montana all the way into the Midwest, and then spreading down all the way into Texas and the Northeast and even the Southeast as we get later into the forecast. That is a huge story that's going to be driving weather throughout the next 2 weeks, where many locations will be 10 to 20 degrees below zero. We're going to have to keep our eye on this, see how cold it actually ends up getting. And this is actually a serious part of the forecast, because when you get temperatures that cold, that's where it could start being threatening to safety. Then we also have some interesting stuff going on precipitation-wise. We have this system moving through the northwest, and then another little system behind it that's going to be dropping 2 to 3 feet of snow to Washington, Idaho, and Montana. We had that system that moved through the Midwest. That's now gone. Dropped some rain to the southeast as well, and some light snow to the northeast. That one's gone. Now we're mostly getting lake effect snow over the next 24 hours. The big system that we're watching is this low pressure system that looks like it's going to be starting to form Saturday afternoon, pulling in that moisture from the Gulf of Mexico and taking in some of that Arctic blast of cold air we were just talking about, and then moving up the coast. The big story there is how close to the coast it ends up moving. As of right now, it looks like places like Virginia up into, and then Massachusetts could have our best accumulation totals. But for right now, it looks like the majority of the Northeast is missing out on that. But again, each model run moves that low closer and closer to the coast. So if the trend continues, that could turn into a major nor'easter. Now, another major storm that we noticed was way off in the forecast is as we get into the 9th, 10th, and 11th, we have a major storm that could be building into the northeast as we get into midweek next week. That's the big one that we're going to have to keep our eye on. So if you want to stay tuned, you can subscribe to Holt Hanley Weather. And if you live in the eastern parts of the country, bundle up, because it is certainly going to get cold. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day and a great weekend.